I was halfway through reheated leftovers when my wife walked into the kitchen and casually said, "Friday, I'll be staying at my boss's cabin for a work retreat." She said it the same way someone mentions needing milk from the grocery store. No build-up. No discussion. Just a statement dropped between my second bite of cold lasagna and the weather report humming from the TV in the living room. I looked up at her, fork still in my hand. Cabin? Rachel opened the fridge, scanned the shelves like she hadn't just altered the atmosphere inside our house, and grabbed sparkling water. Yeah. Team strategy weekend. Weekend? She cracked the can open. Friday evening through Sunday morning. I waited for the part where she'd explain why she'd never mentioned this before. It didn't come. Instead, she took a sip and leaned against the counter scrolling through her phone. For some reason, the first thing I noticed wasn't what she'd said. It was the perfume. Same perfume she used to wear on anniversaries. The expensive one. The one that had been sitting untouched in our bathroom cabinet for nearly a year. Maybe that sounds ridiculous. Maybe most people wouldn't notice. But when you've been married 11 years, you notice stupid things. The way someone closes a cabinet door. The way they say your name when they're tired versus annoyed. The way they suddenly start wearing perfume for a team strategy weekend. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Everybody's staying there. Some people. Your whole department. Not everybody. Her answers came fast. Short. Efficient. Like customer service responses. I set my fork down. Who's going? She shrugged. My boss. A few project leads. Marketing people. Guys from finance too. That made her glance up. Why are you interrogating me? There it was. The shift. Not defensive exactly. More like irritated that I'd disrupted the script. I'm asking because you've never mentioned a cabin retreat before. It came together fast. How fast? Ryan. That tone. The warning tone. The one designed to make a reasonable question sound unreasonable. I leaned back in my chair. Okay. She stared at me another second, like she expected a bigger reaction. When it didn't come, she nodded once and headed upstairs. Conversation over. Just like that. I sat alone in the kitchen listening to the refrigerator hum. Maybe I should tell you something about me. I'm not the jealous husband type. Never have been. I work as a claims investigator for an insurance company. My job is literally built around separating facts from assumptions. Evidence matters. Patterns matter. Feelings. Feelings are usually unreliable witnesses. Rachel knew that about me. Maybe that's why the whole thing bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Because something felt managed. Like she'd rehearsed the announcement. Not the words. The delivery. Calm. Casual. Minimal details. A controlled burn. The next couple days I told myself to let it go. People travel for work. People stay at resorts, hotels, retreats. Successful adults don't spiral because their spouse has a weekend event. That was the speech I gave myself Thursday morning while pouring cereal before work. Then I opened our shared credit card app. Not snooping. Just checking whether the water bill payment had cleared. And there it was. Nordstrom. $382. 2 days earlier. Rachel wasn't a reckless spender. We usually texted each other before purchases over $100. I stared at the charge. $382. For a work retreat. I almost laughed at myself. You know what I hated most? How fast suspicion makes you become someone you don't recognize. Because my first thought wasn't maybe she needed work clothes. My first thought was, what did she buy? That thought sat with me all day. By evening, curiosity won. Hey, I said casually after dinner. Saw the Nordstrom charge. Rachel didn't even look up from her laptop. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, what? Needed a few things. What things? Clothes. Simple answer. Too simple. What kind of clothes? Now she looked up. A dress. One word. No elaboration. I smiled slightly. For the retreat? She closed her laptop halfway. Ryan, why are we doing this? Doing what? Talking? Being married? I wanted to say that. Instead I said, you spent almost $400. I'm asking. It wasn't 400. 382. You memorized it? The conversation somehow turned into me being weird for noticing our finances. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. She wasn't reassuring me. She wasn't sharing details. She was redirecting. Small difference. Huge feeling. Friday came faster than I expected. I worked from home that day, which meant I had a front row seat to Rachel getting ready upstairs. Laptop open. Emails ignored. Suitcase wheels rolling across hardwood floors above my head. Closet doors opening. Drawers shutting. Around 4:30 she came downstairs carrying a tan leather overnight bag I'd never seen before. New bag. New dress. Old perfume. My stomach tightened. She set the bag near the front door and checked her phone. Face down on the entry table. Another new habit. People don't realize how loud small behavioral changes can be inside a marriage. I watched her from my office doorway. You leaving soon? About 20 minutes. Driving? Carpooling. With who? She hesitated. Barely a second. Still enough. Melissa. I knew Melissa. Melissa hated overnight work events. Had 2 toddlers and complained about leaving home for anything longer than Target runs. Nice, I said. Rachel nodded distractedly. Then she disappeared upstairs again. I wish I could tell you that I trusted my instincts right then. That alarms went off. That I knew something was wrong. Truth. I wanted to believe her. Badly. Because believing your wife is easier than rebuilding your life. At 5:12 my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Normally I ignored them. This one caught my attention because it came from Evan Morales. I didn't know Evan personally. But I knew the name. Rachel's coworker. Marketing department. Always tagged in company photos. The kind of upbeat corporate guy who somehow looked professionally enthusiastic in every picture. He had posted a story. Nothing unusual. Just people loading coolers into the back of an SUV. Corporate retreat energy. I almost clicked away. Then I noticed the background. A wooden deck. Dark cedar railing. Triangular window reflection. My thumb froze over the screen. Because I knew that deck. Not vaguely. Not maybe. Exactly. 2 summers ago Rachel's company hosted a barbecue at her boss's house. Spouses invited. I'd stood on that same deck burning burgers beside her boss while listening to people argue about fantasy football. This wasn't a retreat venue. This was a private house. Her boss's house. My chest tightened. Maybe that still meant nothing. Maybe the retreat really was happening there. Possible. Completely possible. Except for one detail. When Rachel described it Monday night, she'd called it a cabin. Not a house in suburban Connecticut with imported patio furniture and a heated pool. A cabin. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I zoomed in. And in the corner of the photo, half hidden behind a cooler, Was Rachel's tan overnight bag that I stared at the photo long enough for Instagram to dim my screen. Rachel's tan overnight bag sat near the cooler like an accidental confession hiding in plain sight. My first reaction wasn't rage. It was something colder. Recognition. That quiet internal click when separate details suddenly line up into a shape you didn't want to see. Cabin. Carpool. Melissa. None of it fit cleanly anymore. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. That matters, because people love pretending suspicion arrives fully formed. It doesn't. It arrives arguing with itself. One side builds the case. The other side tears it apart. I reopened the story. Watched it again. People laughing. Someone carrying folding chairs. Music in the background. Not exactly a secret affair setup. It looked annoyingly normal. Corporate people pretending work was fun. I checked the timestamp. Posted 15 minutes earlier. My eyes drifted back to Rachel's location sharing on our family app. Disabled. My stomach dropped a little. We didn't track each other obsessively, but we always kept it on. Mostly for convenience. Grocery runs. Traffic. Safety. Normal married people stuff. She'd turned it off. Maybe accidentally. Maybe not. I sat in my home office staring at my own reflection in the black computer monitor. 42 years old. Stable job. Mortgage. Retirement account. Marriage entering year 11. And somehow I was becoming a man analyzing Instagram stories like a teenager after prom. I hated it. More than suspicion, I hated what suspicion turns you into. I picked up my phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. Finally I texted Melissa. Simple. Casual. Hey. Hope the retreat weekend isn't too painful. Good luck surviving all the corporate buzzwords. I regretted sending it immediately. Too obvious. Too weird. But 3 minutes later, 3 dots appeared. Then her reply. Retreat? What retreat? The room seemed to shrink around me. I reread the message twice. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe different teams. Different event. I typed carefully. Rachel mentioned your carpool for the work retreat this weekend. Thought you were both headed there. Read. No reply. 1 minute. 2. 4. Then my phone rang. Melissa. I answered. Hey. Her voice sounded confused. Ryan. I think you've got me mixed up with somebody. My chest tightened. Rachel said you two were driving together. Silence on her end. I'm at my son's soccer tournament in Vermont. Just like that. No drama. No accusation. Just a simple factual sentence delivered by a tired mother standing beside a soccer field somewhere hundreds of miles away. Facts. Evidence. Patterns. My own professional instinct started arranging pieces without my permission. Oh, I said quietly. Sorry. My mistake. Everything okay? She asked. I looked toward the front door where Rachel's empty shoe rack suddenly felt louder than silence. Yeah, I lied. All good. We ended the call. I sat motionless for a long time. There's a strange moment when doubt stops being hypothetical. Not proof. Not certainty. Just the moment your body realizes your mind can no longer explain away the inconsistencies. Rachel lied about Melissa. That wasn't interpretation. That was objective. Verifiable. Small lie or big lie, I didn't know yet. But a lie. I stood up too fast and paced my office. Part of me wanted to drive there immediately. Another part wanted to pretend none of this existed until Sunday morning. That second option had real appeal. Denial is underrated. People mock it until they're the ones protecting their entire life from collapsing. Around 7:30, my phone buzzed again. Rachel. Made it. Spotty signal. Busy night ahead. Attached was a photo. Wine glasses. Cheese board. Sunset view. 4 people seated around an outdoor table. Strategic cropping. No wide angle. No full context. I zoomed in automatically. God, I hated myself for that. Her smile looked relaxed. Comfortable. Not work stressed. Not. Retreat exhausted. Comfortable. The kind of smile people wear when they've already settled into an environment they wanted to be in. I noticed something else. Ryan. Her boss. Sitting 2 seats away. Casual sweater. Drink in hand. His arm blurred near the edge of the frame. Too close. Hard to tell. Maybe. Maybe not. Again. Uncertainty. The most exhausting emotion on earth. I typed 3 different replies before settling on, looks nice. Have fun. Because what was I supposed to do? Launch accusations through text messages based on Instagram stories and missing carpools? No. If I was going to confront reality, I wanted reality first. Not emotional improvisation. Around 9 that night, unable to focus on television or food or literally anything productive, I opened LinkedIn. Search, Ryan Keller. Rachel's boss. I'd met him twice. Mid-40s. Charismatic executive energy. Expensive watches disguised as casual confidence. His profile loaded instantly. Company leadership posts. Speaking engagements. Awards. Corporate optimism weaponized into human form. Then something caught my eye. Relationship status? No. LinkedIn doesn't do that. But recent post. Grateful for family time after a demanding quarter. Attached photo. Wife. 2 daughters. Disney vacation. Posted 3 weeks ago. I stared at his smiling family longer than necessary. I'm not sure why. Maybe because betrayal feels less abstract when collateral damage has faces. I closed the app. Opened it again 20 minutes later. Closed it again. Around 10:15, Evan posted another story. Bonfire outside. Music louder now. Someone filming the backyard. People holding drinks. I watched casually until the camera swung left for half a second. Rachel. Standing near the fire pit talking to Ryan. Nothing explicit. Nothing dramatic. Just proximity. Familiarity. The way she tilted her head while listening. The way his body angled toward her. Tiny things. Human things. Dangerous things when you already suspect something's wrong. I replayed it 3 times. Then I noticed the timestamp. Posted 8 minutes ago. My mind did quick geography calculations without permission. 45-minute drive from my house. Maybe 50 with traffic. I looked at my car keys sitting beside the kitchen counter. Don't. Seriously, don't. That was the rational voice. The adult voice. The version of me that respected privacy and consequences and self-respect. But another voice answered immediately. She lied about Melissa. She lied about the cabin. She turned off location sharing. And now you're supposed to spend 2 days eating leftovers pretending this is normal. I stood frozen in my kitchen staring at my keys. Then I made the mistake that changed everything. I picked them up, the drive felt shorter than it should have. Maybe because my brain spent the entire trip fighting itself. One version of me kept insisting this was insane. Go home. Sleep. Talk to your wife like an adult on Sunday. Another version, the quieter, colder version, kept replaying the facts. No retreat. No Melissa. Location off. Private house labeled as a cabin. Facts don't care about comfort. That's something my first supervisor taught me years ago during fraud investigations. People lie for complicated reasons, but patterns usually stay simple. I pulled on to Ryan Keller Street a little after 11. Quiet neighborhood. Expensive houses pretending not to be expensive. Long driveways. Landscape lighting. Controlled perfection. I parked 2 streets over because apparently suspicion had already turned me into someone who thought tactically. The night air was colder than I expected. I walked slower as I approached the house, hands shoved into my jacket pockets, every step giving me one more opportunity to turn around. Music drifted faintly through the trees. Laughter too. Not wild party laughter. Relaxed laughter. Comfortable laughter. The kind that belongs to people who believe they're exactly where they're supposed to be. Through the side fence I could see part of the backyard. Fire pit glow. Patio. Lights. Maybe 8 or 9 people left now. Less than the corporate retreat Rachel described. Someone carried empty glasses inside through sliding doors. 2 men argued playfully about football near the grill. Nothing scandalous. Nothing cinematic. For a moment, standing there half hidden behind a hedge like a suburban idiot, I actually felt embarrassed. Deeply embarrassed. Maybe I had blown everything out of proportion. Maybe Melissa had simply not been invited. Maybe cabin was shorthand. Maybe I was about to become the cautionary tale husband who destroyed trust because he couldn't manage his own insecurity. Then I saw Rachel. She stepped onto the patio carrying 2 drinks. One in each hand. She crossed directly toward Ryan. Not toward a group. Toward him. He took the glass from her without looking surprised, like this was a practiced rhythm between them. Familiar. Automatic. They exchanged a few words I couldn't hear. He smiled. She touched his arm briefly while laughing at something he said. Small gesture. 3 seconds maybe. Harmless in isolation. Crushing inside context. My chest tightened in a way I can't fully describe. Because betrayal rarely announces itself dramatically. Sometimes it arrives disguised as ordinary intimacy that no longer belongs to you. I stayed there longer than I should have. 10 minutes. 15 maybe. Watching pieces instead of certainty. Rachel talking with others. Ryan circulating. Group conversations. Nothing definitive. No secret kiss behind the garage. No movie scene confession under moonlight. Just enough familiarity between them to keep my stomach knotted. I should have left. Honestly, I know that now. But pain has a strange relationship with confirmation. Once you start looking, stopping feels impossible. Around midnight people began heading inside. Music lowered. Patio emptied. I walked back toward my car feeling exhausted and stupid and somehow still unconvinced. Because despite everything, I still didn't have proof of what my emotions were screaming. Only lies. Proximity. Instinct. I sat behind the steering wheel without starting the engine. My phone buzzed. Rachel. My pulse jumped. Long day. Going to crash soon. Miss you. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Miss you. That almost broke me more than anything else that night. Not because it sounded fake. Because part of me believed she meant it. That's the ugly complexity nobody talks about. People can care about you and still betray you. Those realities are not mutually exclusive. I looked through the windshield at dark houses lining the street. Then I did something calculated instead of emotional. I sent one sentence. Hope the meeting goes well. By the way, your company's HR department called me today. I didn't explain. Didn't elaborate. Just pressed send. The response came faster than human comfort should allow. 3 dots appeared instantly. Disappeared. Returned. What? Another bubble. What do you mean HR called you? My heartbeat slowed in a strange, detached way. There it was. Not confusion about HR having the wrong number. Not curiosity. Panic hidden inside efficiency. I waited 2 full minutes before replying. Long enough to let silence do its work. Probably nothing. We'll talk Sunday. Good night. Typing bubble appeared immediately. Vanished. Reappeared. Ryan, stop. Then, why would HR call you? Then, are you serious right now? I leaned back against the seat staring at the flood of messages. Something fundamental shifted inside me. Because innocent people don't usually unravel from a vague sentence unless they already know what category of problem might exist. My phone rang. Rachel. I let it ring out. 30 seconds later, another call. Declined. Then another text. Answer me. I didn't. Not out of strategy at first. Out of shock. The reaction was too sharp. Too fast. Too revealing. 5 minutes later the front door of Ryan's house opened. I froze. Rachel stepped outside alone holding her phone against her ear. She moved quickly across the patio scanning the yard. My yard hidden, fence-shadowed position suddenly felt dangerously visible. She looked upset. Not mildly concerned. Upset. She dialed again. My phone lit up with her name. I silenced it. Rachel paced near the fire pit, talking rapidly into voicemail after the call failed. I couldn't hear words, only fragments carried by wind. What does that even mean? Call me back, this isn't funny. Then something happened I still replay sometimes when sleep won't come. Ryan stepped outside behind her. No audience. No group. Just him. He approached directly. Close. Familiar close. Not boss to employee distance. He touched her shoulder gently. She turned toward him immediately, frustrated expression softening into something else. Relief maybe. He said something I couldn't hear. She handed him the phone. Not casually. Trustingly. He looked at the screen. They spoke quietly for several seconds, standing far closer than co-workers discussing logistics at midnight should stand. My stomach dropped clean through me. Not because they kissed. They didn't. Not because of some dramatic confession. Because of comfort. Instinctive comfort. Shared problem solving. The kind married people are supposed to have with each other. Rachel took her phone back. He kept his hand lightly against her upper back for one brief moment before they went inside together. And somehow that tiny gesture hit harder than anything loud or obvious ever could have. I sat in my car unable to breathe normally. 11 years of marriage compressed into one unbearable realization. I didn't know the full truth yet. But I knew enough. Enough to understand that whatever Rachel and I had been protecting, pretending, performing, it was already cracked long before tonight. My phone vibrated one more time. Rachel. New message. Please answer. We need to talk before you do something impulsive. I read it twice. Before you do something impulsive. Not before you misunderstand. Not before you overreact. Before you do something impulsive. Choice of words matters. Patterns matter. I stared at the glowing screen in the dark car and realized something terrifying. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. And calm, in moments like these, can be far more dangerous. That I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there in the dark with my hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the glow of Ryan Keller's house through the trees like it belonged to a different version of my life. The kind where you don't question your marriage at midnight in a stranger's neighborhood. Rachel's last message kept repeating in my head. Before you do something impulsive. That word again. Impulsive. As if I had already decided what I was going to do, as if everything I'd seen was just waiting for my emotions to catch up. But the strange part was I didn't feel impulsive at all. I felt focused. When you spend years investigating other people's dishonesty, you learn something important. Panic lies. Anger lies. But patterns don't. And right now the pattern wasn't pointing to one dramatic moment. It was pointing to a slow shift. A drift. A series of small decisions that only make sense when you stop pretending they're random. I finally drove away from the curb and headed back home. The roads were empty, the city lights blurred, and I kept replaying the way Rachel had stood near Ryan, the way she had handed him her phone without hesitation. That wasn't romance in the obvious sense. It was something worse in a way I didn't want to name yet. Trust misplaced. By the time I reached our house it was after 1 a.m. The lights inside were still on. Rachel was waiting. Of course she was. I parked but didn't get out immediately. I just looked at the house, at the windows glowing softly like nothing inside had changed. That illusion bothered me more than anything. Because everything had changed. When I finally stepped inside, she was standing in the living room barefoot, arms crossed, phone in her hand like. She had been rehearsing what to say for the past hour. She looked tired but alert in the way people look when they know a conversation is already lost. "Where were you?" she asked immediately. Not angry. Controlled. Careful. I closed the door behind me. Driving. She studied my face. "You were there, weren't you?" It wasn't a question. I didn't answer right away. I took my jacket off slowly, placed my keys on the table, and only then looked at her properly. Yes. Something shifted in her expression. Not surprise. Not denial. More like resignation mixed with frustration that the timeline had moved faster than she wanted. "Ryan saw you?" she asked. "No," I said. "But I saw enough." Silence filled the room. Not the comfortable kind we used to have watching TV or cooking dinner. This was the kind that carries weight. She sat down on the couch without breaking eye contact. "You shouldn't have come there. You shouldn't have lied about Melissa." That landed harder. I saw it immediately. A flicker in her eyes. "I didn't lie," she said too quickly. I almost laughed, but it came out tired instead. "She's in Vermont at a soccer tournament, Rachel." Her face tightened. For a second she looked like she was calculating options. Then she exhaled and leaned back. It wasn't like that. That sentence. The universal opening line of people who know they're already losing the explanation. I stayed standing. "Then what was it like?" She hesitated. And that hesitation told me more than anything else so far. "Work is complicated right now," she said carefully. "Ryan helped me with something important. That's all. At his house. It was a team retreat. Melissa wasn't there. Plans changed." Each answer arrived slower than the last. Not because she was unsure of the facts, but because she was choosing which version of them to present. I nodded slightly. Not because I believed her, but because I wanted to see how far she would go. "Do you want to know what I think happened?" I asked. She didn't answer. "I think you didn't plan anything physical." "Not at first. I think it started as work. As attention. As being heard by someone who made you feel seen in a way I stopped doing without realizing it." Her eyes dropped for the first time. That was confirmation enough. I continued anyway. And then it became easier to be around him than to fix things here. Because fixing things requires effort. Avoiding them doesn't. She swallowed. You're making it sound worse than it is. I'm not making anything sound like anything, I said quietly. I'm describing what I saw. She stood up suddenly. You followed me because you already decided what you wanted to find. That hit something old in me. Defensive instinct. But I didn't raise my voice. I've learned over the years that volume is usually just emotional avoidance. No, I said. I followed you because I didn't want to believe what I was already noticing. That made her stop. The room felt smaller. I could hear the refrigerator in the kitchen. The house settling. Normal sounds pretending nothing was breaking. Nothing happened, she said again, but softer this time. Almost like she was trying to convince herself now. I looked at her for a long moment. I believe you, I said finally. She blinked, confused. That wasn't the response she expected. I continued. I don't think you crossed a physical line. Not tonight. Not before. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like relief was trying to enter before reality allowed it. But that's not the only line that matters, I added. That changed everything again. She sat back down slowly. Then what are you saying? I walked a few steps closer but stopped at a distance that felt honest rather than intimate. I'm saying we stopped talking to each other a long time ago. And someone else filled that space. Her eyes filled but she didn't cry yet. It wasn't like that, she whispered. It always is like that, I said. Nobody wakes up and decides to destroy their marriage in a single moment. The silence returned, heavier this time. I sat down across from her. Not next to her. Not separated by anger. Just distance. Real distance. When did we become this? She asked quietly. I shook my head. We didn't become it all at once. That's the problem. We didn't notice the steps. She wiped her face quickly, frustrated with herself. So what now? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Not as a reaction. As a decision. Because this part of the story isn't about catching someone. It's about what you do after you've already seen enough truth to stop pretending. Now, I said slowly, we stop guessing. She looked at me. And start telling the truth. I nodded. All of it. The room stayed quiet for a long time after that. Not healed. Not fixed. Just exposed. Finally visible. And for the first time since I saw that Instagram story, I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I was waiting for them.